Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about input and output in Simulink. And so input and output is, I'm going to cover just how to use and store data from the MATLAB workspace. So I've shown you already how to, at a very minimal perspective, use input-output in MATLAB, inputting and outputting Excel data, using fprintf to output text files, things like that. Those are very powerful tools. But from Simulink, there are tools out there that allow you to interface with other programs. That's a little over the scope of this course. And so I'm just going to talk to you how do I use stuff from the MATLAB workspace? I've already told you that you can. So there's a couple ways you can do it. You can use this SimIn from workspace block and to workspace block, and those will read in data from the workspace or output data out to the workspace. Another way you can do it is you can read data from a file, and so you have to be very careful on how you use these formats. And so actually for the file, this one's not going to be right, and I'll show you why here in a moment. So I already have that already set up here, and my goal is going to be to read in some data from the MATLAB workspace. Let me already set up the time vector. The time vector is going to be from 0 to 10. I want to simulate a differential equation. What x dot is equal to tangent of t plus x. And I want to input the tangent of t from the workspace. And so let me grab the from workspace block. And I can just type it in here, from workspace, or I could have gone up to library sources, and then I could have gone from workspace. And so let me just connect that there. And I want to open up the dialog here and see what it says. So it says, for matrix formats, each row of the matrix has a timestamp in the first column and a vector with the corresponding data in the second column. And the data that it's pulling out is the variable name out of the workspace. So I'm going to call this tan t. So I need to create this tangent of t in the workspace. But remember, each row has a timestamp and the actual value. And so that means time is going to be one column, the first column, and tangent of time is the second column. So let's do tan is going to be, I'm going to call it value is going to be equal to tangent of time. Because remember, I want to input the tangent of t. And so now I can say, all right, so tan t is equal to time and value. And so I'm using the transpose, so that time is in the first column, value is in the second column. And now it still goes red, but if I go to run it, it should run now. And it didn't. Oh, that's because for some reason it's not in the workspace. There we go. Let me try it again. All right, so for some reason when I ran it, it wasn't in the workspace anymore. But so I redefined it. Tangent of t is equal to time and value, and now it outputted into the workspace. And then it pulled it into Simulink and simulated. Let's see what the scope looks like. Let's see what the plot of this looks like. And then I'm going to show you how to output it to the workspace. And this is the typical way to do it. I usually don't use from file blocks because they're a little less all-inclusive. It's a little bit harder to do things from a file. And so this is the correct plot. This is what it should look like. And so that's how you use a from workspace. What if you want to use a to workspace block? So let's go to the sinks and grab to workspace. And I'm going to call this variable x1. And so if I were to run it, you'd think that, okay, I'd get the answer x1 in the workspace because it's a to workspace block. Let's see what happens. I run it. I go over here. Oh, and look, there is an x1. Great, it worked. And the reason there's an x1 is because I forgot that I already did this on this script. I have it in the notes. You want to go up to model configuration parameters and check to make sure under data import export that this single simulation output is not checked. Usually it is. And so let's see what happens when I run that. So if I clear x1 and I go to run this, my output is now just in out. And so I have to go in there and pull out the correct data. See, x1 is now inside of this out variable. And that is because with this This output parameter is you want only a single simulation output. I don't. I want multiple variables to be a possible output. So if I run it again, it should actually output all of these 2 workspace blocks, and it did. I only have 1, but now I have this time series. Problem is it's a little bit hard to use time series properly. You can use them to plot pretty easily, so I should just be able to plot this time series. I can plot this one variable that holds both time and data, but usually I want something else. So let me double-click this to workspace block. Let me show you. And there are multiple save formats I can use. I can use time series, which I just showed you as a different type of variable. It's basically holds both the time data and the actual data itself in the variable is the easiest way to explain it. But typically I'll use arrays or a structure with time. And that's because the array will just get output if I run again. It just gets output as an array of values. And now I can go plot it versus time. Question is, was time output? And I know the answer. The answer is yes. If I go to my configuration parameters again, click on that gear, if you notice, the default is for the time to be checked as to be saved to the workspace. And so that is typically saved as T out. And so if this box is checked, what it'll do is it's going to output a time vector that corresponds with x1 and all the other vectors that would be created in this file, and it calls it T out. And so you can change formats and things, but so what I can do is x out is my answer, T out is my time, so I can now plot T out x1. And see, that's the same plot I just got with the time series. And so now let me show you just really quickly how to use the from file block. I don't use it very often, but it is useful to use sometimes. So let me double click this and show you. So I'm gonna call this file name that I want to use tx tangent of t. So tan of t. So I need to save a mat file that is that name. I don't think I've really shown you how to save mat files, but you probably have run across it at this point if you've tried to save in the command window or something. And so a mat file is effectively just saving the MATLAB workspace to a file, and that way you can import it later. And so the way to do that is you can use the save command and then give it a file name. So in this case, I'm going to save tant.mat, and I'm going to only save the variable tant. And if you'll notice, it will output this tant.mat, and that should only have tant. Or I could Control S, and it'll save everything in the workspace as a mat file. If I were to do that, I would want to clear some of this out, so I'd want to clear everything. So to clear out the whole workspace, you can usually use clear, but I don't want to clear everything. I want to clear everything but tant. And so there's a different command you can use for that. It's called clear vars, which means clear variables. And then what you do, what this does is it will still clear out your entire workspace. Then if you do -except and then type that, what this will say is clear all the variables except whichever ones you list out here. So I could say tan t. And then I could go and save the whole thing as tant.mat. That's either way works. So let me save this one as ex1. And so now what that does is that will change my tant to, it'll save it as a workspace, and now it'll try to use it in MATLAB. I'm going to have a problem if I do this, though. Let me run it and show you what I get. It should still run. It's taking a bit. So it still ran, and let's see. Should have output xt. It didn't for some reason. It looks like it still hasn't finished simulating yet for some reason. I might have just froze up my MATLAB. Okay, so it finished running, and now I have x1. And so the reason it probably took so long is because this x1 is not the correct answer anymore. It's a whole matrix of values, and that's because I didn't pay attention to the input dialog for the from file block. And in here it says matrix format can only be used for a vector, double, or non-complex signals. Ignore that. Each column of the matrix must have a timestamp in the first row and a vector containing the corresponding data sample in the subsequent rows. So what you end up having here is that you have each column of whatever matrix you're using needs to have a timestamp in the first row and a column and a vector in the next row with the corresponding data. And so in this case, it's actually the opposite of what you want from the from workspace. It's kind of confusing, isn't it? But what you need to make sure is to read these dialogues if you get the wrong answer. And so what I need to do is I need to flip x1, so, or not x1, tan t. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it. Tan t is equal to tan t inverted. And so now I have a timestamp in the first row, corresponding value in the second row. And so now what I'm going to do is use that clear vars expression to clear everything but tan t. And now I can save tan t dot again. And now when I go to use it, it should work. There. And let's see what the solution looks like. And now I've gotten to the right answer again. So I needed to flip it because the from workspace uses columns. The from a file block uses columns. So or it uses rows, and the from workspace uses columns. So you need to make sure you read these things when you use them, and that can kind of be a key to you. All right, why did I get the wrong answer? Let me go into these blocks. A lot of times it'll be, all right, I didn't read and use the correct format, or it's like, all right, I didn't actually input an initial condition, or I missed some sort of setting somewhere. Instead, in a nutshell, is how you use input-output, how you use all these different blocks. And so a lot of these summaries I have in these notes as well. So if you were to go down, this is a reminder that you want to go into the configuration properties and make sure that this box is unchecked. And then it also shows you, hey, look, time's here too. All right, and so those are kind of the major things that I want you to know about how to do input-output for this class. There's a lot more to it, and maybe at some point in your careers you'll get to those, but I've at least laid a solid foundation.